Welcome to the Gold Standard here on the 440 Sports Network. My name is Braden Gall, and you can get to me on Twitter at Braden Gall. Emma and Michael, how you guys doing this morning?
I think a lot better than you are.
I'm fine.
Clearly.
My 7-year-old, however, completely distraught. Emma at Emma_Lingan, of course, the hockey news. Michael Gallagher at MG Sports _ at Nashville Hockey Now. We have much to discuss, but I'm going to start with Buster Bennett. Brutal, just brutal. Buster Bennett again drove 6 hours for that game. Sam, it's incredibly unfair that the Predators get to do that to me. That's where we're going to be today, folks. That's where we're going to be today. Lots of things to discuss. What happened? What happened at Bridgestone Arena on Sunday afternoon? I have never seen anything like it in 20 plus years of hockey in the city. We'll discuss sort of where this ranks in the pantheon of pain, as well as how do we place blame here. I don't think we need to go to social media reactions because those are completely insane. But we will have some conversations about some of what the fans are feeling this morning. And more importantly, is there any chance at all that this team can get off the mat after that sort of mental problem or mental situation and try to compete in game number 5? We'll talk about Brunette. We'll talk about Colton Sissons. We'll talk about Roman Josi. We'll talk about defense. We'll talk about UC Saros. We will talk about all of it. I just want to ask you guys first and foremost, though. I was there sitting behind the goal with my 7-year-old daughter. You guys were there. What were the conversations? How do you? I mean, the Predator again. For those that don't, I don't think I need to reset this game and tell everybody what happened, but I guess I'll do that. 4-3 loss in overtime. They give up a goal with 2:47 left to go to make it 3-2. They give up a goal with 8 seconds left. Brock Besser scores all 3 goals, hat trick in regulation. They give up a goal a minute and 2 seconds in to overtime. It's one of the worst 4-minute stretches of hockey I've ever seen in my entire life. How did you guys feel about the conversations after the game? Take us through the psyche and the process that the players are going through following a game like that, where you have, your heart completely ripped out of your chest.
I actually wasn't there. Clay was covering the game, so I had to watch the media availability videos that Nick sent out after the game. But yeah, I think all you need to take from this is watch Gustav Nyquist. He had no answers for anything. You could tell there was visible frustration. And the last thing these players want to do is go out and talk to the media after a loss like that, because they know that there has to be some level of accountability. Fans want answers. The reporter's supposed to get the answers for them. And honestly, I don't think that they even have an answer for what happened. It was a monumental collapse. It shouldn't have happened. Again, this is like the November Predators. This is not the Predators that went on an 18-game point streak that kind of took the NHL by storm, that somehow made this great comeback and shouldn't have even been in the playoffs in the first place. And there was no answers. No one knew how to explain what happened. My theory is that we're seeing the difference between a Jack Adams finalist and a Jack Adams winner. Andrew Burnett is getting thoroughly outcoached in this series by Rick Tocchet, and that to me is the biggest difference.
Ooh, we're gonna expand on that in just a second. Emma, thoughts?
Well, I don't know. Are you ready for my dose of optimism and logic? No. Because that's all everyone wants to hear this morning. No, I was in the room. It was not a fun room. Obviously, that is the least I've ever heard Gus say ever in a conversation. I think it points to what Andrew Burnett said after the game, which is that guys are older, veteran guys. It's harder for them to get over a loss like this. And this is kind of when you need your younger guys to almost kind of carry you in the mental game, just because they can turn the page a little bit quicker. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of, clearly it was a gut punch of a loss. The guys were not happy and they weren't trying to make excuses for what happened. So, people were upset, I think, with the media availabilities. And it's like, what could they have said that would have made this okay? I'm a little confused about that. Wouldn't you want them to be upset? I don't know, but
no, I think look, first of all, Predemption. I need some positivity after the gut punch from last night.
I've got plenty.
Emma will be there for you. I agree. I think any criticism of the fans of the media conversations, not the media like the press corps, but the conversations from the players to the media, I think it's pretty ridiculous. Like I think honestly, Gustav Nyquist, that is I think he played much better in the post-game press conference than he did in the last 5 minutes of the game. Like that is an incredibly difficult, extraordinary situation. And to keep your composure and have to answer the questions, even as a guy who is clearly visibly, like you said, Emma, like completely distraught, pissed off, angry, every emotion would be understandable. I don't expect these guys to scream and yell about this stuff. Like that's not what you do as a professional athlete. You have to move on. So I don't really know what the fans want the players to say. Like they are.
Well, there was one guy who wanted Roman Yossi to just call everyone out by name and start throwing everyone under the bus. Like that's not going to happen. Like the amount of people that called him a soft captain because he wasn't doing that. To me, that would show signs of a soft captain. If you're out there calling people out by name, throwing your teammates under the bus, you're like, well, Sissons missed a fucking open net, man. He's got to hit that. Like that's not what leaders do. And the fact that Roman Yossi is not vocal enough for some of the fan base, like some of you guys just need to, I don't know. Like I could go off on a tangent on this, but like,
yeah, I agree.
They were upset. You could tell they were upset. They're not going to sit there and they're not going to moan and complain about stuff. They're not going to be like, oh, we're going to run down everything bad thing that happened that we need to fix or whatever. Like you could tell like that was a different environment and a different atmosphere in the locker room after some of the other losses they've had in the series. And I expect them to come out and respond in Game 5.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go on a journey together here today. And it sounds like, Michael, I'm going to ask you to describe more about what you're talking about from a coaching standpoint. Then I'm going to tell you what I think happened. And then Emma's going to finish it up with some positivity. So we're going to go on a journey and then we're going to see where that lands. We're going to see where that takes us here. So when you say that you think a guy is getting out coached, obviously there was one adjustment to the lineup, injury based, right? Spencer Stasny's out. Dante Fabro gets in. Actually had a couple of really good shifts in the third period. But no forward changes at all. Is it just the lineups? What is it that you give me some specifics on why you think Andrew Burnett is getting out coached by Rick Tocchet, who, by the way, said nothing to his team during the timeout break. Like Andrew Tocchet just stood there during the timeout break at the end of the third period. Right before, I think it was in between the two goals. Maybe clearly they already had the 6-on-5 play drawn up or something. I don't know, but like he just stood there, and Vancouver just stood there. Explain what you mean by that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Tocchet is making the adjustments, and Brunette, not that he's not making adjustments, he's just not making the right ones. Tocchet is pushing all the right buttons, and Andrew Brunette is not. If you look at the series, the Canucks have had 20 shots, 21 shots, 18 shots, and 12 shots. The consensus is in 3 of the 4 games, games 1, 3, and 4, the Predators have been the better team and outplayed Vancouver, and Vancouver's won all of those games. How else do you explain getting outplayed and yet still coming out with a win? To me, that's coaching. And we can talk about whether he should have played Dante Fabro or Tyson Barrie. We could talk about Tommy Novak and how he was still in there and he looked even worse last night. I think he had like his lowest ice time in his career. Maybe I don't remember. I have to check all the numbers and stuff, but he had like 1 or 2 shifts in the third period. You have Juuso Parsons sitting on the bench that is a lot bigger, who probably matches up stylistically better with some of the guys in Vancouver. But I mean, you're looking at you've had 20 or fewer shots in 3 of these 4 games, and yet you've still come out with wins. You're out hitting one of the most physical teams in the NHL. You're beating the Predators by playing their game. And granted, Vancouver plays the same style of play, but Vancouver is beating Nashville, and they're doing it by doing exactly what Nashville wants to do to Vancouver. For the first 2 games, JT Miller, Brock Besser, they were neutralized. They had no points, and then all of a sudden, Brock Besser gets a hat trick last night in Game 3. JT Miller finally got on the scoreboard and stuff. Like Nashville has neutralized Quinn Hughes for the most part, and they've really taken it to him, and they've abused him more than he has in the entire regular season. Like they've done that one thing right, but everything else I'm watching, just some of the sloppy play, the power play can't figure it out. The penalty kill has looked a lot better, but just everything I'm watching and I'm seeing on the ice, you're looking at these games and you're like, wow. Nashville is outplaying Vancouver, not just outplaying them, like significantly outplaying them, generating more scoring chances. They're 30 shots on net to 12 or whatever it was the other night. And somehow Vancouver is still pulling out these wins. And you look at last night, you're down 3-1 in the third period. You come back. Granted, it was the Brock Besser show, and I get it. He's a 40-goal scorer. He's one of the top players on Vancouver.
Maybe cover him.
Yeah.
And just an idea.
there's 3 minutes left and you give up 2 goals in the final 3 minutes, and then you lose a minute into overtime. To me, this is a coaching idea, or this is a coaching problem.
Okay, let me go through some comments here, because you guys, by the way, great to see so many of you in the comments. If you're on YouTube, give us a little thumbs up. If you're on Twitter or Facebook, please share. We do appreciate that. Mitch says Parsonen should have been slotted in for the Novak last game. If he isn't on the ice in Vancouver, that's a gross mismanagement of the roster. Novak is too small to be successful versus the size of Vanderbilt's D-core. Benjamin says, as much as this hurts, we have to remember that Vancouver was up a player. Yeah, it's not acceptable, but that's what I have to remind myself. I don't know if I'm on board with that, Benjamin. You have to pull the goalie. It happens all the time on both sides, so you got to learn how to play that way. Alex says, why are we sitting Glass and Parsonen while Novak and Beauvillier have been mostly invisible? It's mind-boggling. You have nothing to lose at this point. Just try it. Well, I would correct you there. You do have a playoff series to lose. That can happen in game number 5. I don't – look.
And I'm not saying Andrew Burnett's a bad coach by any means. I'm just saying in this series, he is getting out-coached by Rick Tocchet.
Emma, I want you to, because I've got some responses to that as well. I don't think the Predators have significantly outplayed Vancouver in this series. I would argue it's the other way around. I think in game 4, they played their best game, start to finish, outside of the last 3 minutes. So I was sitting behind Saros in the third period. And I looked at my 2 buddies and my daughter, and we're sitting there, and I'm just like, guys, I think this is going to be like 16 minutes of offensive zone time for the Canucks. They are going to pelt, and it's going to be a barrage on UC Saros. And it wasn't. It wasn't. They played a great third period for 17 minutes. They played a great third period. I think they were clearly the better team in game number 4. I don't think I can say that about games 1, 2, and 3. So I don't necessarily agree with they've outplayed Vancouver. I think they outplayed them in game number 4. So, Emma, your thoughts on the coaching thing before I tell you exactly what happened in game 4 and who to blame.
I think it's, I mean, first of all, I would say, yes, Nashville was the better team for 57 minutes of game 4. I do think that they were also the better team in periods 1 and 3 of game 3. They were not the better team in game 1. But that's, I mean, neither team really looked that great in game 1, to be honest. Game 2, Vancouver was a better team, and look at who won. So is this not what we said, though, the other day when we were like, what's your prediction? It's like
Hockey.
one team is going to outplay the other.
That's exactly right.
And that team is going to lose. And that's what happened. I mean, It's, again, I have a lot more to say. I will wait my turn, but I think that, yes, when it comes to the coaching, I think there's some validity to that, but I also think that it's got, like, I don't know, you have to just like look at the rosters too, and just look at the size of guys, and just look at a lot of other things. I think that I don't know if I can put it all on coaching. I don't think. I mean, I think there's some validity to it, but I can't just say that.
So I'm going to try to work through this list of things that Preds fans are blaming today. And so, first of all, Wally, is this the Chokers Anonymous group session? Yes, it is. Predemption. Ryan O'Reilly on the 3-2 goal has to cover Brock Besser or prevent him from getting the pass. All right, so here's what I would – here's – number 1. For an epic collapse to take place or an epic comeback to take place, either side of the coin that you're on, so many things have to happen. A lot of stuff has to happen consecutively that are largely kind of not like fortunate or lucky, but just like a long list of things has to happen for an epic collapse or an epic comeback to happen. So if you want to say like that the entire, all the little things that built up to the loss, like it is the team has to own it. Because it's not Colton Sisson's fault that they lost the game. That is absurd to me. That was a tough play on a backhand across 2 sticks. Should he have made it? Sure, he probably should have. Probably would have won the game. Is it Colton Sisson's fault they lost the game? Of course it's not. Is it UC Saros' fault that they lost the game? No, of course it's not. If you look at every of the 3 goals at the end of the game and take a screen grab, which I have done because I like pain. There is no coverage, which we'll get to that. Andrew, like special teams, okay, they went 0 for 2 on the power play, but they were excellent on the penalty kill. And frankly, it was a very clean game for both teams. Special teams were not a factor, in my opinion, in this game. When you're up 3-1 with 3 minutes to go and they're pulling the goalie, it wasn't the reason you lost the game. So ultimately, Andrew Burnett, absolutely, you're the coach of the team. You got to take the blame. Like every player, every part of the team, top to bottom, has to take the blame for an epic collapse like this. But if you're asking me to find a specific thing and try to zero in on one thing, honestly, it is veterans fucking up in their own zone. These guys cannot. Philip Forsberg on the goal in overtime. What are you doing? You're just skating aimlessly through the offensive zone while Lindholm gets like multiple chances. Like, what are you doing, Ryan O'Reilly, on the 3-2 goal? You got a guy on the backside completely wide open. Was it a brilliant play by Vancouver? Absolutely. Completely brilliant play by Vancouver. Do something better. On the goal with 8 seconds to go, there are like 2 Predators lying on the ice, including Roman Josi, while there are 3 Canucks standing in Josi's kitchen. They're not supposed to be there. You cannot leave wide open players in front of the net consecutively all the time. Get play after play after play after play and expect them not to do something special with it, because they're very good. Vancouver, to your point, Emma, and to your point, Michael, they are a better team with more talent. You can't also be stupid and make stupid mistakes. You can't do that.
On all 3 of Brock Besser's goals, he's unguarded. There's nobody around him. The first goal, there's probably not a Predator skater within 5-6 feet of him, I would say. On the second one, it was the same thing. He's crashing the net. You know that he's coming at you with the puck, and you cannot find a defenseman anywhere close to him. And then on the third one where he went backdoor, like, yeah, that was just Saros it was bad positioning. He got caught off guard. But if you look at that, because I took a screen grab for that for my story, they'll be on Nashville Hockey Now in a few minutes. If you look at that one, there's 4 Canucks players in the crease surrounding Saros, and then the defensemen are on the outside, building a wall on the outside. Like, that was a complete defensive breakdown. And it's not because they put Nante Fabro in and Spencer Stastny was missing. That was a systems issue. I don't know what was going on. They were out of position the entire game, and they hung Saros out to dry.
And let's be honest, on the last goal, sometimes an elite player does something spectacular. Quinn Hughes absolutely destroyed Nyquist on the boards, and it became a 6-on-4. And like, that's just sometimes a great player makes a great play, and you got to just go, all right. But Nyquist broke both. I think he's at the orthopedic surgeon this morning because both of his ankles are. I'd be pissed in the post game too if my ankles were that broken. But like, it happens. He's a great player. Quinn Hughes had played extraordinary hockey in the final 5 minutes in the offensive zone, moving the puck around. But like, to me, there's Lozon is in there, Carrier's in there, O'Reilly's in there. In fact, Luke Shen gets beat in the overtime goal because Garland just puts him in a blender down on the boards, hits the brakes, feeds the puck right out into the center of the crease, and Lindholm standing there completely uncovered. You can't leave guys uncovered in front of your net in the playoffs against great teams and expect to win. So it's a total team loss. Everyone takes the blame. That's how this works. It's a team game. But if you're asking me for a specific that I have to try to drill down on, it's not Roman Josi's captaincy. Get out of here with that crap. That's absurd. It's not Josi. It's not Sissons. If you have to say one thing, it's terrible defensive meltdown in critical situations where you just got beat and you probably shouldn't have. And I don't know how you get off the mat. So that's my take. You guys can react, and then Emma, if you want to take the big picture, you can. But I think that's how I feel about it. Is, I can't explain it to my daughter that way. It was just like totally devastated walking out of the building. But I don't know. You got to cover somebody in the playoffs, man. These guys are professionals. You got to cover.
No, I think you're right. And every single game, even the one that the Predators did win, you can point to moments, minutes even, of just terrible, terrible defensive zone play. And that's something that fans aren't used to because the Predators are built from the back end. They're built from defense and goaltending on out. And I don't know if it's a system issue. I don't know if it's just the immensity of the moment, if it's just Vancouver's that much better. But the defensive zone play in this series has been terrible. And it's not like it was like overwhelmingly great in the regular season, but it's been magnified now because we're seeing the size, the speed, the tenacity. I mean, someone on Twitter said it last night, like Vancouver stole Nashville's relentlessness. Like, they were playing exactly how Nashville was playing when they were going on their 18-game point streak and they were beating all these teams. Like, the defensive zone play has got to get better because Saros can only do so much. And there's been a lot of giveaways in the defensive zone. There's been a lot of just issues with struggling to clear the puck. Like, something as basic as clearing the puck out of your own zone. Like, they're struggling with some of the fundamental things, and I don't know how to explain it.
All right, Emma.
You ready?
Go. Let's go.
First of all, I would like to start by saying that I don't disagree with anything that was just said about, especially about the defensive breakdowns. It's bad. It's bad. And at no point during my little soliloquy here do I want anyone to think that I'm trying to say, guys, it's not that bad. Relax. Like, it's bad. I completely agree it's bad. However, if we want to look at big picture, I think that, first of all, again, you look at the game as a whole, 57 minutes. Nashville dominated. Like, they looked
I agree.
good. They looked good. And I know that doesn't erase the final 3 minutes, but in the same vein, the final 3 minutes should not erase the prior 57, as much as people want to think of it that way. And I think looking at as a whole here, all these people, now granted, I know that I don't really have a leg to stand on because I have only covered this team for 2 years at, this closely. But I think that everyone who's saying this is one of the worst playoff losses in franchise history, and this is where I can't wait to see my mentions after this, everyone saying that this is one of the worst losses in franchise history needs to calm the fuck down for a few reasons. Number one, it's the first round of the playoffs. It's not the final, not even the conference final. Number two, was not an elimination game. Okay. And now they're going to one, but this was not an elimination game. Number three, weren't supposed to be here in the first place. It's a 7 seed against a 2 seed, and a 7 seed that really we were not expecting to even sniff the playoffs this year. So let's just all remember that. Number 4, what was that? Number 3, I've already lost track.
You're on 4.
All right, thank you. Sorry, it's early. Number 4, it's, again, they didn't get outplayed in the game. They got outplayed in the final 3 minutes for sure, but I think that you need to just have some perspective, because I said this on It's All Your Fault with Gover today, who was much more willing to agree with my optimism. Like, look,
there's a shocker.
Yeah, surprise.
I was going to say, far be it for me to be the resident optimist here, because I'm generally not. And that's putting it lightly. But I think I look at this series, and I understand it's a 7-game playoff series. You don't have the luxury of time to just wait for things to, level themselves out. But I look at it as like that people who are I just think that people who are really, I don't know, they're overreacting to one loss. And now I'm not saying it wasn't a bad loss. It was very, very bad. But I think it's an overreaction to start blaming things like the management and the captain and all these other things. And it's ludicrous to me, because it's one. And again, I look at this series as a microcosm of the rest of the season. You look at how Nashville started, 5-10, wasn't good. Then they go on a little kind of mini run in November, and they actually look pretty good. They're finally, things are starting to click. You're like, all right. So I consider that 5-10, that was game 1 of this series. The little good run where things are starting to click, that was game 2. Now, games 3 and 4, well, I would say game 3 is that whole stretch from like December through the All-Star break, where you're actually like, you're doing the right things. You're, you don't look bad, but you can't get wins. And like, there are just, some things that aren't quite working. And that, that is how I would look at that. Game 4, that's your 9-2 loss to Dallas. It's bad. It's not the same kind of loss. It's more of a gut punch than an embarrassment, because it's two kind of different types of losses. But I look at those as turning points, potential turning points, where something could, you could use that as a springboard to something. And I think if you look at it that way, Nashville has been down this road before. They have, gotten just their asses handed to them. And what happened after the 9-2 loss? They went on an 18-game point streak. Now, before anyone thinks,
18 straight games? They're going to win?
No.
That's
So,
a cup, baby.
Okay, before anyone does exactly what Braden just did and says that I'm suggesting that, okay, this is it. This is the turning point. Preds are going all the way to the cup. It's not, I don't think
They
that's
are
happening.
not allowed to go to a concert on Sunday night.
Correct.
They're not
That
allowed.
basically that's the moral of my story. No, I think my point is we've seen them do it before. We've seen them just get absolutely demolished. And this is a different kind of demolished, but mentally, like, it should kind of sit similarly with them. It's like, this is not us. This is embarrassing. And we've seen them respond. So that's why I say everyone needs to calm the fuck down about making big, sweeping generalizations about this game. I am not saying it's like, guys, it wasn't that bad. It was bad. For sure it was bad. But like, it was an epic collapse. I'm not disagreeing with that. But I think that everyone needs to just have a little perspective. I know that's a lot to ask for people, especially on Preds Twitter. And like I said, I can't wait to see my mentions. And for the really brave people, I can't wait to see my DMs after this. And I just think that it's good to have a little bit of perspective and just think about this in terms of, oh God, not the damn jerseys again.
Sam says the biggest takeaway from being in the building yesterday, I didn't see a random NHL team jersey.
As a matter of,
if that's what we've got, that's exactly explains where we are this morning. So,
as a matter of fact, one of the loudest fans near the press box last night, like loudest in favor of the Preds, I was actually getting rather annoyed with him because he was very loud, was wearing a Bruins jersey. So that was interesting.
That's terrible.
But
that's terrible.
I'm not trying to go down that road again. But
I've never, well, hang on. I've never heard, what's the guy, who's the name of the guy? Wayne D? Is that the guy in the stadium that does the in-game thing? Yeah. About 5 minutes to go, he gets on the mic and he's like, hey, let's close this one out, guys. Let's stay on our feet. Da, 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 da. And I'm just like, that seems so odd to me. I've never seen an in-game, like, that's like commentary on the game by the in-game host. And it's not like, I'm sure somebody put him up to that. Like, I don't know. That felt weird. Just a random observation, seeing somebody talk about
You're the only one who found that weird, but
no, I talked to my row and I was like, wasn't that weird that he was like getting on, like, unless he does that all the time and you guys can tell me that he gets on there. I mean, I don't know.
It's not,
game ops is not supposed to be commenting on the play.
It's not all the time, but like, he's done it before. I mean, he's not commenting specifically on the play, but it's like, hey guys, like, let's close this one out. Like, I don't think that that's overstepping.
The Preds in-game host has really struggled ever since Maverick left. It's gone downhill.
So, all right, I do agree. I think ultimately the point is, because I agree, if you are a rational, reasonable person, you are not jumping to large sweeping conclusions because of 3 or 4 minutes of terrible hockey. Like, that's not captaincies and Saros and Brunette and Trotz. Like, if that's what makes you feel better and that's what you need to spew into the universe, I mean, I guess go for it. That's fine. But I also
that's not our audience, Braden. That's not the people that are listening to this. Especially if you look at our mentions and see all the people that are like, I hope you guys address this tomorrow on the Gold Stairs. Like, they want us to rip this team anew.
No, but everybody, what's odd though is everybody in the comments right here that is watching is like, I need some positivity right now. We got to see the big picture, blah, 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 blah. Because I do think, Emma, you're like right and wrong at the same time, because you're right that it is 57 minutes. Better hockey, 3 minutes.
You want to go? Let's
go.
Let's get into this.
But in a playoff series, you cannot say, well, don't let the 3 minutes that led to the losing score overshadow no, like if they do that again in game 5 and they play the best game they've ever played and then they choke in the last 3 minutes, it doesn't matter if you played the first 57 minutes of great hockey. It doesn't matter in a regular season game. You're 100% correct. Like, no, what's important is we see how the team plays and that they've learned this and that their shifts are this way, and they carried play. They dominated the neutral zone in the third period. Dominated the neutral zone. It was great hockey. That is irrelevant if you don't finish the game in a playoff game. And I think they are done. I said it to people in the stands. They gave up that goal, and I said if they can survive the first 2 minutes of overtime, they've got a chance to win the game. But otherwise, Vancouver's winning the game. They're going to score quick, and they're going to go back to Vancouver and finish it out. That is, I don't know how you overcome that. And I'm not trying to be like rip the C off Yossi's chest. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But and if you're a fan and you want to be positive today, that's fine. If you're a fan and you want to scream negativity, that's fine. Like, you're a fan, you're entitled to your own sort of reaction to this. But there's no way to sugarcoat what happened. You can't spin those 4 minutes. It's everyone. They all deserve blame. Everybody deserves it. And you're professionals. You can't let that happen. You can't. Not in a playoff series. So.
I'm absolutely not trying to sugarcoat anything that happened. That's what I said. The fact that they dominated for 57 minutes does not overshadow the ending, but the reverse should be true too. I'm saying that the final 3 minutes should not overshadow the 50s as a whole. In the game, yes, for sure. If you're looking at the individual game, yes, final 3 minutes, disaster, horrible. But if you're looking at as a whole, I think you have to have some perspective and think like, okay, now I agree. And I also think that we're arguing two different things here, because you said if it happens in game 5, then that's bad. Yeah, but we haven't gotten to game 5 yet. So let's just wait for a minute. And that's why I'm not ready to just completely write off this team, because I think that game 5 is that's when it becomes, and I've talked about this before, that's when behavior becomes a pattern, and that's when it's not good. And I think that the reason I say that you need to focus on the first 57 minutes is because if you can play like that, you can play like that for the majority of a game. If you continue to play like that, you are going to be successful. And I know, like, Andrew Brunette said this afterwards. What's funny, I was in the press conference room for both coaches post game to listen to the two of them, Andrew Brunette and Rick Tocchet. You would have thought that the Canucks lost the game if you just listen to the demeanor between the two coaches. Rick Tocchet was not happy with how his team played, nor should he be, frankly, because they did not play well for the majority of that game. Andrew Brunette wasn't in like good spirits, obviously, but he did not seem as distraught as you might think. And before anyone starts leaping to these conclusions like, oh, he doesn't care, he's a bad coach, no, just remember he's been here before so many times as a player, as a coach. Brunette even mentioned a couple times in his playing career he's been in series where he's been down 3-1 and they went on to win. And so I think that it's important to have that perspective, because it's something that we've heard throughout the season where he said, look, we played well. And I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, but we played well. We did the right things. Eventually the hockey gods will have to reward us for that. And, the strategy is the same. The game plan is the same. Now, I'm not talking about individual like X's and O's, and yes, like maybe put a guy on Brock Besser. That would be a good idea. But I think that overall the strategy is the same. They stick to their identity. They keep playing. They know that what they did, like the final 4 minutes or final 3 minutes, is inexcusable what happened. And they know that. But they're not willing to let that kind of, like, I just see this team, and again, we've seen them do it before. I see this as a springboard to something else. I don't think, again, I'm not over here. Again, far be it for me to say anything overwhelmingly positive about the Predators organization, but I think that they are the type of team that will use this to be successful. That doesn't mean they're going to go all the way to the cup. I'm just saying I think that this one loss doesn't mean it's over for them.
32 times, by the way, Michael, I want to give you the floor here, but 32 times in NHL history has a team come back from a 3-1 deficit to win. So statistically, extremely small chance to win the series. Michael, when is it okay to go big picture, in your opinion, versus still in the moment here? Like, we're only the next day. I'm not ready for big picture yet.
Are you talking about big picture, like in terms of the season or in terms of the series?
Yeah, because I think Emma's right about where the franchise is. I just think you have the entire offseason to think that way. I think right now you have to analyze it like they potentially lost the series on Sunday night. Potentially.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going big picture in terms of the season, obviously don't do that until after the series is over. Like, it's not inconceivable that this team can reel off 3 straight wins the way they played last night. If they replicate last night minus the last 3 minutes, if they replicate that in game 5, 6, and 7, they could very easily come back and win this series. I'm not saying that I think they will, but they're at least capable of it. So don't start thinking about what coulda, woulda, shouldas. Don't none of that until the deciding game is over and the Predators are officially out of the season. But I think I don't disagree with anything that Emma said. I do think if you're a Predators fan, like absolutely take what she's saying, because if you need positivity, then I mean, she just gave you a whole boatload of it. But I do think as a fan, you have a right to be pissed off. I mean, especially the people that were at Bridgestone. I mean, I was 15 seconds away from texting Clay and being like, I'm glad the first playoff game you got to cover was a win. And then all of a sudden they got a goal. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to hold off on that text. And then 2 minutes later, they scored again. I'm like, yep, this isn't happening. So if you're a fan, be pissed off about that game, but don't sit there and think because they lost one game and it was a really bad loss, but don't sit there and explicate that and make it seem like that's how the entire season has gone, because it's not. Like Emma said, they weren't supposed to be in the playoffs in the first place.
Can I also just say I'm sickened with myself right now for how positive I'm being? Like, this is a really weird moment for me and I don't like it. So just, I hope everyone appreciates that.
I feel so positive, but I'm so negative about why I'm so positive.
This is not right. I feel dead inside. Like these words are coming out of my mouth, and I'm like, who is that speaking? I'm sorry, Mike. I just had to.
No, you're good.
Please continue.
But yeah, I mean, it was a bad loss. Be mad about it, but don't stew on it. That's exactly what the players are doing. And if there's one thing I would point out. And Emma touched on this a little bit. Andrew Burnett said, we're doing the right things. Eventually the hockey gods will take pity on us and whatever. Like, to me, that I wouldn't have said that if I was him, because that shows me you don't really have an answer. Like, there's things going on. You're losing games. You don't have an answer to why. So to sit there and say like, oh, we're doing everything right, but we just need a couple breaks to go our way. And that's what I was trying to touch on earlier. I feel like Rick Tocchet has made the adjustments and Andrew Burnett still hasn't made the right adjustments. So relying on the hockey gods to reward you, like, I don't know. I feel like that was a little bit of a cop-out. And I might be the only person that's thinking that. But, I mean, the Predators have to go out. Yes, they are doing all the right things, but doing the right things is not working. So you need to find the right things that actually work and not just doing everything you think you're supposed
to. I think so. Okay. Michael, it feels like you're putting a lot more of this on the coach, which I think is fair. That's fine. I would put a lot more of this, this specific part of the series, like just this 4 minutes here. I would put it a lot on the veterans. Like, the veterans are the one out there. The players are the ones out there. The players are the ones that blew the coverages multiple times in a row.
I believe that too. Yeah. And in my story that'll be on Nashville Hockey Now soon, like that's the first thing I lead off with what went wrong is the Predators' top players have been neutralized this series. Forsberg, Yossi, O'Reilly, and Nyquist. And granted, Forsberg and Nyquist had two of the 3 goals, and O'Reilly and Yossi excuse me, picked up assists and whatnot, but they, for the most part, they've been nullified. And to Nashville's credit, they've nullified Quinn Hughes, but Vancouver's just doing a little bit better job of taking away the Predators' best players, whereas the Predators did it for the first 2 games. And the last 2 games we've seen Besser and Miller and all these guys really come out and take the fight right to them, which is exactly what we expected to happen. So the fact that you had 2 games where you had JT Miller and Brock Besser not get on the score sheet and you didn't win both of those games, like that to me was very telling.
So coaching, veterans, Emma, unicorns, and rainbows. I got it. Imagine. No. I'm kidding. Imagine the tone of this is from Jahan Joe. Imagine the tone of the conversation if Sissons makes the empty net goal. Preds dominated. Coaching was great. Defense was great. Game of inches. I don't disagree. It just like it snowballs, and it's it is what it is. I will go back to like. It's not just. It's like Luke Shen got beat in a particular moment. Roman Yossi played one of his best games of the series, but got. Was out at like made a mistake. Ryan McDonough didn't finish a check in the defensive zone in on certain play. Like it was all of the veterans, I think, that kind of made it was again, it's a combination of all of the things together. That's why I think everyone owns it. Everyone wears it. This is not one person, one thing, and it's not Colton Sissons' fault. It's not Roman Yossi's fault. It's not. I don't think it's any one person. I think if you want to say. And to your point, Emma, like, yes, if this had happened in Game 7 of a Western Conference final, yes, it would be a bigger loss. But from a like objective, factual analysis of what took place, And again, you put in a tweet. I put in a tweet like, one of the worst losses in franchise history. I think it is. I think it's one of the most mind-boggling, crumbling collapses in the history of Predators playoff hockey. And yes, it would be worse if it was a Stanley Cup championship game or a Western Conference final game. But like all the games where Pekka got pulled against, was it Winnipeg a couple years ago in 2018 when they won the President's Trophy and like they got blown out in a couple of those games. Like if you think getting blown out is worse, that's fine. I don't. Sometimes you just don't have it. The other team's better than you. They show up, they kick your ass. This was, you were the better team and you just choked. And I think that's why this one was worse than anything I've witnessed since covering the team in 2016. It's worse. Now, again, you just sort of say that and then you got to move on to game 5. It's not, to your point, Emma, it's not worth, like every fan has to move on in their own time, right? Like it's not, you can yell and scream about it if that makes you feel better, but they got a game to play on Tuesday night. So,
and I would like to point out, because I tweeted this last night and Michael picked up on my reasoning for it, Braden, that
let's have this conversation because you're both wrong on this one.
Okay. Well,
us and the entire Vancouver Canucks were all wrong.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm talking to the players playing the game, so I'm I tend to maybe agree with what they have to say more than you, Braden. No offense.
I'm not disagreeing with the players. I am saying that you two both put words in my mouth that I never said. So go ahead. Okay.
Well, anyway, regardless of my reasoning I am throwing this out there for absolutely no reason whatsoever. I'm just spewing words over here. Talk to a number of Canucks players, not in a scrum setting, not in a media like casual conversation, like, and just because I know a few of the guys on that team, to a man, every single one of them unprompted said, I really fucking hope that we don't come back here. Like, they're like, that trip is brutal. We hate it. And like now you've got the 1-1-1 games home and away. So it's even quicker turnaround. And they're like, again, the context is, like, Emma, we love you. Good to see you, obviously. But then it was like, okay, love you. Good to see you. Hope that we don't see you again this week. And I'm like, honestly, fair. I get it. Because they all talked about how brutal that trip is. They don't want to make it again. And I look back to, and then if you think of that from the Predators' perspective, it's like, well, they've got to come back to Nashville anyway after they play game 5. So you might as well bring Vancouver with you. Like, that Vancouver's going to have more of a drive and more of a reason to try to put this one away in game 5. And that should light a fire under the Predators' asses because they're going to have to make the trip anyway. So why not bring them back with you?
Yeah, no, what it sounded like in your tweets that you were saying is that I didn't think it would be a factor. I never said that. I never said travel wasn't a factor. I said the matchup was more important, and the travel affects both teams. I think your tweet actually proves my point because Vancouver has to do the same travel that Nashville does. They both have to do the same amount of travel, and it sucks. Absolutely, it sucks. Yes, absolutely, it's a factor. No question about it. But if you're talking about the matchup, like, I would much rather they should have won. They should be tied 2-2 with a chance to win the series right now. I think I feel completely vindicated. I'd rather play them. Now, having said that, Dallas is losing to Vegas. So.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on over there, but I would also like to say that my pre-series prediction on this very show was that it would be Canucks in 6. I have not changed that. I am still not saying that. I think, again, when I say like, oh, this can be a springboard to something else, this would be way too out of character for me to say, I think the Preds are going to go win a series now. But I still think, they win game 5, to be honest. I think that they pull a win out because this loss is not going to sit well with them, nor should it. And I think that they're going to come out. They're going to be really pissed off. They're going to take it to the Canucks. And I think they win game 5. I still don't think they win the series, but I think they win game 5.
Mike, what do you want to see? So now we're sounds like this has happened naturally. It took us about 44 minutes. We finished the therapy session. Now we've moved on to game 5. And I agree. Look, they could absolutely get completely dominated and Vancouver play a totally better game and the Preds win the game. And that would be totally on par with the series. I think I said on the prediction show They're going to split in Vancouver. They're going to split in Nashville, and Vancouver wins 4 and wins 5 and wins 6. So far, I think all of us are pretty close. What do you want to see, though, Michael? You've talked about the coaching. You've talked about the lineup. You've talked about the matchups. There was a tiny tweak for an injury in Game 4. It seemed to work for whatever reason. I don't think that's the reason that they were. I think they played their best game of the series. Do you want to see anything different? Or Andrew Burnett could also go to his team and say, look, we just played the best game of our series. We're not going to change anything.
I think that's probably what happens. Andrew Burnett has been very reluctant to go away from what's been working in the series, which is why we've seen the exact same forward group pretty much. I think the one change he might consider is swapping out Novak for Parsonen. And yep. I say that because, I mean, you look at Novak, he's been pretty much invisible this entire series. He took 12 shifts in Game 4, 9 minutes and 40 seconds of ice time. I mean, he only took 3 faceoffs. You're not using him in what he's designed to do is to, I mean, it's what centers do. They go out and they take faceoffs, and he was counted on to drive offense during the regular season. He did a pretty good job, but I think he's what, 6 foot and 179 pounds. Like, he's just getting ragdolled out there by Carson Soucy and Zadorov and all these 6'8" freaking giants that Vancouver has on the blue line. So Parsonen, I think you might see him in game 5 just because he can play center. He plays all the forward positions. He actually played really well with Luke Evangelista during the regular season. And he's 6'3", 212 pounds. Like, his body is built to hold up in this kind of a series. So I think that might be the one change you see. Other than that, I mean, we're not going to see Cody Glass in this series. We talked about how much he was injured during the regular season, and sure, he might provide a little bit of an offensive upside, but I mean, this is not the kind of series you throw this kid out there in an elimination game and tell him to go out there and to score goals. Like, it's not going to happen. So everyone that was, I mentioned saying throw Glass out there, it's not going to happen. Like, I think Fabro played pretty well for the most part. Brunette even said, like, as he got going, like, he started to like his game too, and that was an incredibly tough situation for him. You're throwing him out there in Game 4 in the middle of a playoff series. He hasn't played in over a month, basically. And I mean, he's not the same player that Spencer Stastny is. And I think everyone's like, oh, well, we need someone to go out there and replicate what Stastny was doing. And it's just not going to happen. I do think I like the Yossi Fabro pairing better than McDonough and Yossi, just because it allows McDonough and Yossi to be on 2 different lines, and it opens them up to do what they do best. If you put them together, I feel like you're kind of limiting both of them. So I think it's the same offense, or I think it's the same lineup, except you might see Parsonen in there. And I mean, you're getting a kid who's young, who's hungry, who's going to be making his first playoff game. He worked his ass off to try to get back up to Nashville. So, I mean, you might be getting the best version of Juuso Parsonen if that happens. I agree with Emma. I think Nashville does come out and win Game 5, especially if they do exactly what they did in Game 4. Because up until 3 minutes left, they were the better team and they were doing everything right. They should have won that game. I think you leave it alone. And I hate saying that because I feel like what you've been doing hasn't been working. So I feel like change should be necessary. But like there's no one you can put in this lineup that makes this lineup better than what it already is right now. I think offensively, Novak is better than Parsonen, but at this point, if you put him in, you're just kind of playing the matchups. You're going with the size. So that's really the only change I could see that would even make sense.
Let me be positive for a second. Can I be positive for a second? Just and I'll go back to you, Emma.
I was positive. I said the Preds are going to win Game 5.
No. I mean, I haven't been positive the entire show, apparently, which is fine.
That's just your personality.
Just because Novak struggled in this series and has not played well does not indicate anything about Tommy Novak's big picture here. Doesn't make the contract bad. It doesn't mean that his future with the organization is in question. It doesn't mean he's not a piece of the puzzle moving forward. Sometimes you have a bad series and it's not working and a coach needs to make a change. And that's it. Sometimes that's it. Sometimes a pitcher doesn't have his fastball. Sometimes a quarterback is a little inaccurate. It's sports. And so we can say Tommy Novak, 2 things can be true. Tommy Novak may not be a good matchup in this series, and he's played poorly in his first playoff series. And also he's a key forward moving over the next 3 years. So it's also important to keep that in mind. See, I can be positive.
That's where I was going to go with this, actually, is to say that, look, everyone's saying Cody Glass should be in there. Love the kid. No, he shouldn't. He's the kind of kid who's going to come in this kind of situation. He's going to be gripping the stick too hard because he's trying to make an impression and trying to be perfect, and it's not going to go well. Parsonen, I agree, should be in. Now, knowing Andrew Burnett, I don't know if he will be. I would like to see him in there for all the reasons that Michael just said. I think that he's bigger. He will actually be able to put up a fight against some of these bigger Vancouver guys, and he can move guys off pucks. Tommy Novak has been way too easy to move off of pucks during this series.
He's getting tossed around, man. It's bad.
And he is. And again, it does not mean that he is, it was a bad signing or a bad contract, whatever. I think it's just, this is not the right series for him. I think honestly, if the Predators had ended up drawing Dallas in the first round, I would say I would rather have Tommy Novak in there, frankly, just because of the way he matches up against the team. But right now, you're looking at everything that's going on and that has gone on. I think you need someone bigger in there, and bigger and faster. And I mean, Tommy Novak can be fast, but like he's got to actually hold on to the puck to be able for that to mean anything.
Stay on his feet.
Yeah. And I think that, he is getting kind of ragdolled out there. But like, speaking of which, at the end of the second period, did anyone else notice, like, end of the second period, there's, scuffle in front of the net. All the guys start getting into it. They kind of end up kind of going, each guy takes a different guy from Vancouver to kind of go at it with. Who the hell on the Canucks decided to leave Quinn Hughes by himself with Michael McCarron? I'm like, I have some questions for you because but that's just a horrible way to treat anyone on your team, especially your captain. Would also like to, this is really not related to anything, but I just found it kind of funny. Everyone was freaking out when Roman Josi took the puck up high and in the second period had to go off. The officials sent him off because his ear wouldn't stop bleeding. And everyone was freaking out. What I think is very ironic, and I just love hockey and karma and all of these things. Guy who shot that puck that hit him up high, Ian Cole. Look at Ian Cole's face. He's missing 3 teeth and his lip is busted up. You know who did that to him 7 years ago? Roman Josi. I just think that's kind of funny. I was I didn't realize that until after the fact, and I'm like,
that is why you tune into the Gold Standard podcast right there. Those kind of nuggets. And I'm not kidding. That's good stuff. I will say you could hear it in the arena hit plastic. So like it was clear he didn't get it like straight in the face or whatever, because everyone in the building was like, oh, but it was so loud you could hear the plastic of the helmet.
His ear, if you are squeamish, I would not watch any of his post-game availability because his ear looks gnarly. It's all stitched up and it's not great. I mean, I will say, because we have to mention this, at least it didn't get the face, didn't get the moneymaker, but his ear is
he's what's funny is when he was asked, did you get stitches, he kind of like smiled and was like, yeah, like he wore it like a badge of honor, which was kind of interesting.
Well, I just thought it was kind of a weird question because we're literally standing on the side, like looking at his very visibly stitched up ear. So I think he was kind of like, yeah. Yeah. Well, so I don't know.
I will say they have hit him all series the way that the Predators should be hitting Hughes, honestly. Like they've done a good job of hitting Josi around. And I thought Josi played one of his better games.
The Predators have hit Hughes like that because I was watching the games obviously, but I was watching yesterday the Canucks pregame, and whoever the Sportsnet equivalent to like Willie Donick was asking him, I forgot what the question was, but it was phrased like Nashville's gotten to you more this series than pretty much any other team has hit you during the regular season. And before he answered, he let out this sigh like, why did you have to remind me? So he knows, like, okay, and you could even tell when he was answering the question, it was one he didn't want to answer because he's like, yes, like he knows, like that sigh, you could feel the pain in the sigh because Nashville has put him on his ass several times and they go at him. I mean, sometimes it feels like it's unprompted, like, oh, there's Quinn Hughes, let's just fucking hit him because he's over there. Like they're taking it to him.
It should be, if you are the best defenseman or the two best defensemen in the NHL, it's prompted. Like that's
like
game plan.
He looked like he was hurting yesterday too. I mean, like I think it was Zucker and someone, maybe Bovillia. I don't remember who else it was, but they kind of sandwiched him on the boards at one point, and he looked not good after that. Like, he was struggling. He was doubled over on the bench. Like, trainer was in his ear. It didn't look good. And so I have to think he's playing hurt now. You've got all these other injuries that Vancouver's dealing with. I mean, all the more reason I think the Predators really need to take it to him in game 5. And I do predict that they win game 5.
I don't remember who the Canucks reporter was, but someone tweeted after game 4, they were like walking around the locker room and like half the Canucks players all had ice packs on. So they're definitely feeling the weight of what's going on.
It's Stanley Cup playoffs, baby. This is the nature of the game. I'll never forget walking into the locker room after the Preds lost to the Pittsburgh Penguins the next day, and they're doing the clean out after game 6 of the Cup. And like their eyes are so sunken in their face. It is like none of them look human at the end of 4 playoff series. It is no one is suggesting that this is not extraordinary stuff. It's the toughest tournament in sports to win for a reason. And maybe I just am seeing Yossi more because I'm paying more attention to Yossi than I am Hughes. So that's me on that one. I'll need to correct that. I will say real quickly, because it sounds like we got to go here, but Emma and Michael are both picking the Predators to win in game 5. I will pick the Canucks to finish the series, but I think ultimately the reason they win the game, the Preds, is mental toughness. This goes back to game 1. The way they had to fit, the way that game ended, the way they gave up 2 goals in like a minute to lose that game when they had the game won. That's mental toughness, veteran leadership. They've got that is the way they come back and play their best game of the series and win game 5 on the road. Is mental toughness, leadership, veterans, coaching. All of it works together. Yossi has to play well. UC Saros has to play well. And if I'm wrong, I think that's the reason. It's because they have a lot of mental toughness from this. Because if you can let this one beat you twice. There's no question that this game can beat you twice. Absolutely. And last, we have not mentioned this, and it needs to be mentioned. And sort of every single thing in this conversation is shaded by this, and we probably should have done it at the top of the show. But the fact that they have won 3 games with 3 different goalies, and Shelovs is the guy who wins the game, like that. If this was Demko playing in every game, I think I'm okay with more positivity and more like, hey, they're playing really, really well. Demko's just really, really good. This is not Demko, guys. They're getting beat by guys that nobody knows how to. Like all of Cell Block 303 had no idea how to pronounce his name. the whole game. They're sitting there. It's all your fault. It's all your fault. They're doing the chant, and nobody knows it. Like the whole stadium had no idea how to say his name.
I feel like that furthers my point about the coaching.
Well, to be fair, Cell Block 303 struggles with some like habitual starters names. Like trying to hear them trying to pronounce Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. That was a fun one.
So, all right. I got Vancouver. You guys got the Preds. We will be back on Wednesday morning following the game either way. We shall see if they're coming back to Nashville for game number 6. And Emma, I'm going to see if you can like send some messages to my 7-year-old just to cheer her up because she's absolutely devastated right now. Thank you all seriously for being in the comments and for jumping in and watching. Give us a thumbs up, hit that like button, hit the share button. We do really appreciate you guys for being here. And we'll be back after game number 5, hopefully producing a game number 6. You can follow her at Emma_Lingan. You can get to her, of course, over on the Hockey News. You can get to Michael Gallagher on Twitter at MGSports_, and of course over at Nashville Hockey Now. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for hanging out. We will talk to you guys on Wednesday. Enjoy game number 5.